The best way to get better at programming is to practice. And in this example, we're going to look at creating primitive data type variables inside of C++. So let's go ahead and get started. I've already got a basic file set up, including the IO stream, using namespace standard, etc. We'll give you a couple seconds so you can download this file in the link provided below. You can pause the video to try it on your own, or you can just follow along with us. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So inside a main function, I'm going to create some variables. This will make them local variables, so they're only available inside our main function. And I'm going to use some standard data types that you'll expect to see. Now, I'm only going to use primitive data types, and this is going to be very simple. So you're not going to see some, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. The first one I'm going to use is a char. And I'm going to call it letter, because a char can only be a single character. That's what char is short for, character. So using a letter, this is common, and I can say A. If you notice, I put that inside of single quotes. The single quotes is how we have to do chars. I can only put a single letter. The next data type that you're going to typically see is going to be an int. We've already seen int as the return data type for our main, but an int can be used inside of our main or any other function if we want to. Notice that we do not put any quotes around that number, neither single nor double quotes. Integers can be positive or negative, including 0, and they cannot have anything other than numbers inside them, with the exception of the minus sign if it's a negative number. Now, if I'm going to be using really large numbers, I can use long. A long is actually short for a long int, and you can have any value that an int can have and longer. Now, if you're using a 64-bit system, your ints and your longs in most cases are going to be the exact same size, so typically we just use ints. Next, you'll see a float. Floats are very common, and you can see this in the form of pi equals 3.14. Notice that it has a decimal point. Floats can be positive or negative, and they include a decimal point. Now, what happens if a floating point is simply shown as 3, like that? Well, internally, it's going to be stored with a decimal point. In fact, both float and double are going to be using a decimal system. Now, what's the difference between a float and a double? Well, a double is actually considered a double precision floating point number. A float is a single precision floating point number. So what this means is your double can be slightly larger numbers, and the decimal place is going to be more accurate. So it's accurate to more decimal values. Now you might think, well, wait a second, it's not what I put there? And the answer is no. Both floats and doubles are actually stored as a fraction inside of the computer. So your fractions are approximations. How close it is going to be based upon the significant digits, and your double has more significant digits. So it allows for both larger and smaller and more refined numbers. The last one that you're going to typically see is a Boolean, and this is called bool. And it can be either true or false. All the previous ones were available in both C and C++. C did not have the bool, at least not originally, and so a lot of times you use an integer for a Boolean value. C++ has kept that, and in things like a while loop or an if statement, which we'll be talking about later, if you have a non-zero value, it's considered to be true, 0 is considered to be false. Now with C++, we have the bool data type, and we might as well use these. These are all primitives, so all they do is just store data. There's nothing we can do to manipulate that within the value itself, which is why we don't see a string. A string is a more complex data type, which is used to both store information and allow us to test and manipulate that data. So we'll be talking about that in an upcoming video. If you want to get better at C++ programming, please continue to watch these videos in this playlist, as well as consider subscribing for more videos.